speaker
Perfect.
Oh,
to my
that
phone.
explains a
So
lot. What's good, Gray?
Great.
not much.
You got to give us your most intense evil villain impression.
Talk about
Hold
drowning
on.
hamsters.
John, Drowning hamsters. No,
What's
I,
the
I
most
think I got a,
evil?
I think I got a most evil one.
Ooh, okay. Hit us up with it. This is
Oh wait.
Gray's evil villain impression out here. Also, we just started the stream.
Hi, everybody, and I thank you for that beautiful introduction. I could not be prouder of
It's
everything you've done.
Obama.
Ah,
Obama?
It's Obama memes. He's got Obama memes.
Ah,
Hilarious.
yep, there y'all go.
opinions have joined the chat. I see.
Hey. Oh, we have one viewer. Thank you guys. Hold on.
Oh, yeah, the
Also, we just started the stream.
oh yeah.
Hi, everybody, and I thank you for that beautiful introduction. I could not be prouder of everything
that's
you've done.
Okay, cool.
Ah,
Obama?
We got him out here.
Your voice sounds so terrible on stream.
But yeah, wait, hold up. Let's get back to Steven's question because I really appreciated it and I think it's a good topic for the stream. Also, we got,
right.
yeah.
Let's see if my two brain cells can formulate the question again. So, AP,
Yes.
I've noticed that your streams and your Discord server in particular seem to attract a lot of young aspiring micronationalists. Young, I mean maybe being like 13 and under.
Yes.
So, this new generation who's becoming intrigued with the idea of creating their own nation in like their backyard. I was wondering if you view this recent surge in young micronationalists as an advantage, seeing as could possibly be able to carry the torch due to their mass number and their how young they are and their uh, newfound interest in it, or do you feel that it could be a detriment to the micronational community, considering that they are younger and they have maybe less determination to focus into their micronation, and maybe they are, shall we say, well, I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Do you think younger micronationalists, especially this recent surge that you've been seeing, is a detriment or it's an advantage for micronationalism as a whole?
Well, I think that's a great question. Like I said
Nailed.
earlier, I think so. Whenever I first learned about micronationalism, that was one of the biggest issues that I saw. And whenever I started the Empire of Eternia channel, one of the first things that I wanted to address, the way that I ended up addressing that was specifically on the topic of micronational war, and then doing things with alliances. All of those being topics that I felt like micronations that most micronations that start off, especially those that are less serious and less determined, usually find themselves falling into the same trap of, and I felt like those in particular were detriments to the community. I think being a young micronationalist is a good thing. I think the reason that those potentially more divisive parts of our community exist and have existed and have flourished, why that simulationist or why that fantasy aspect of our community has grown so much is not necessarily due to the fault of the people who became a part of it and helped to promote that. I think it's more the fault of a lack of opportunity for micronationalists. I think the people who find micronationalism and really, really become enamored in it, really become excited about it, are interested in the idea of starting their own nation from their backyard, as you put it. And the thing that's unfortunate is I feel like a lot of people, when they find out about micronationalism, they create their flag, their currency, their government type, they write all this information down, and then they realize that they don't really get a response back. They realize that there isn't a community that's going to flock to having them actually build this grand nation that's in their mind. And so they do things that make that feel more legitimate and find other people who will entertain those ideas and keep that fantasy alive for them. Now, again, I think that is due to a lack of opportunity, sincere opportunity for micronationalists. So I think it's an existential crisis for a micronationalist, essentially saying, what is it that you can do to continue to push your nation and make it more and more realistic? And that's kind of what I hope this channel does. So I think it's less about age and more about, one, how serious you're going to be about the nation that you make, and two, at what point in micronationalism you decide to make your nation. Because people who, let's say 5 years ago, made a nation and joined, MicroWiki, may not have been as big into Discord, may not have been as big into these communities that we're seeing now that are growing, and YouTube, for example, and are becoming more and more prominent. So I think when there are more sincere opportunities for micronationalists to make legitimate nations and to make money on their own without needing a lot of startup capital, without needing to already have essentially the funding and ability to make a nation on your own, that's when I think we'll see more and more realist and sincere nations come about, and where there will be more of a shift away from the fantasy. That's my opinion on it. I think young people coming in will probably always have a touch of fantasy or something that they're essentially overreaching their own abilities and limits to do. But I think that's kind of at the heart and soul of micronationalism, is you're saying, I want to start something unlike the world has ever seen before, knowing that I do not have the immediate resources or ability to do so. And that's what makes micronationalism, especially the mainstream community, seem like this outlandish idea. But if people who are dedicated to it and care about it and start as these young kids come into it and say, no, fuck that, excuse my language, but fuck that, we're going to find sincere ways to make money, to make this idea that we have that other people are calling very out there and very fringe into the realm of reality, that's when you start seeing things become more mainstream. That's when you start seeing people feel like, hey, if only I put a little bit into this community, if I go through the right networks and the right avenues, there's a chance for me to make a real nation. There's a chance for me to see those dreams that I've been hoping for come alive. Because before then, I think almost every micronationalist walks into the community with a smile on their face, with a flag in their hand, and ends up feeling disappointed, and ends up leaving the community, and ends up getting depressed a little bit about it, because they feel like this dream that they had of this welcoming group, this society that they would be able to see shining on a hill, wasn't there. And I think now we're just starting to be able to really build the foundations for that.
I gotcha.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. It's some pretty good justice. However, I also want to get Viren's opinion, if he's still here, because I know he wanted to speak on it, and I think he has some really interesting perspectives on it. So, Viren,
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, there were some great thoughts by AP, and I really respect that. I'm not against like young micronationalists, but I feel that if they really believe in micronationalism, they should actually aim their main aim should be to get proper land. This is very similar to the Republic of Molossia, to be honest, because Kevin Baugh fought a really big battle to actually get land, and he kept fighting for it because he had a partner called James, but James left because he was not determined, or he was not as determined as Mr. Kevin Baugh. But Mr. Kevin Baugh kept fighting on, and now everyone knows him. So that's the spirit that you should have, that you should continue this into adulthood if you really believe in it. But some young micronationalists, actually I've met a lot of these already in the few weeks that I've known this community. Sometimes they take it as a big joke. Sometimes they call themselves brutal dictators and declare wars, and it's just a shame. Therefore, I encourage all these young micronations to start small, but aim to grow, get citizens, be considerate towards them, get land, and find some source of income, such as content creating or the imperial market, which is introduced by this empire. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Viren, I think you're absolutely on point there. The thing that is interesting about Kevin Baugh and Molossia is the fact that I think he is the shining example of how difficult it is to get anywhere in micronationalism. I don't think that Kevin Baugh, in Malassia's current state, is really interested in becoming a full-fledged nation. I think if they were somehow miraculously granted that ability to become an equal nation, I think they might accept it. Although I do think they're not, uh, whether based on his own interest, whether based on his pursuit of time with his family, isn't really looking to grow Molossia much more than it is in its current state. But I think,
Speaking of which, sorry for interrupting, but what is the Molossia like in its current state?
from what I understand, and again, I'm not
Puppets.
the expert on Molossia. In fact, Viren would probably be the best person to tell you because he's spoken, I believe, more recently than anybody with Kevin Ball on that topic. But from my understanding, Molossia is a piece of land, maybe a couple of pieces of land, owned by Kevin Baugh that is used as a jumping off point, a platform to express his interest in micronationalism, to create content for YouTube and the internet, and to ultimately find a community and grow a community around this shared interest.
That is true, but I think, like, I know that Eternia's aims are to create a community on the internet, but with my recent talks with him, I would say more that there are actually tons of people, hundreds of people, who want to be citizens of Molossia.
Wait,
But
which one's Viren?
huh? I'm Micronation YouTube.
Oh, all right, you're Viren.
Yes.
Oh, what's
So
Kevin Ball like personally?
Kevin Ball is great. I think he's a really determined man. He's really he's a really nice guy. Yeah, I think, and he never loses hope. He continues his fun activities with his family. It's good.
Absolutely.
So yeah, just what I was saying. I'll just and finish that. That they are not really focused on getting popular because they are already popular, and that's because of Kevin Baugh's determination. He never aimed to get popularity. He always aimed for a land that he can claim and he can rule with his own proper rules for his family. So at the end of the day, you shouldn't really aim for popularity. If you are determined enough to create a micronation and have your own thoughts and uh, create the micronation that is in your dreams, then you will become popular.
I agree with that. I think absolutely, like you said, popularity shouldn't be the goal, or at least the end goal. But I do think that what a micronation means to somebody can definitely vary quite a lot. Like, for example, you said Kevin Baugh is very, very popular. However, and has had many people from all across the world sincerely ask to become a citizen and to help him grow his nation. Those aren't in his those aren't in his interests. Those aren't where he sees his nation going, and that is perfectly fine. For the Empire of Eternia, though, we do seek a little bit of a different route. We seek that if we are able to establish land and to start making sincerely profitable businesses out of that, that we hope if there are people from other countries, from our own, macronation, who are interested in joining us, that they can start a sincere life for their families where we are, and that is an investment in their lives which will multiply over time and will pay them back. The thing that I think is, like I said, is really interesting about Kevin Ball's story is that it does show him being one of those founding trailblazing members of micronationalism, and one of the people that got me interested in micronationalism is the idea that, like you said, when he was a child, he had a friend who he was very interested in creating this nation with. That friend ended up choosing another route in life, and he persisted. That persistence led him later on, much later after time in the U.S. military and his own ability to acquire that land as an adult, led him to the place where he is now. What I'm hoping is that through efforts like his own, in showing how long and how difficult even small steps in micronationalism can be, that what the Empire of Eternia and what the current micronational community at large can do is know that when newer micronations come in, they are able to achieve those goals and have pathways to achieve those goals a lot quicker. That a micronation may eventually be able to come into the larger micronational community without any specific ways of earning money. They may be a child who is just on their computer and interested in starting a nation, but has no way to legally purchase land or to have any representation or to hold a job, but can yet find through that community a way to make money and a way to eventually purchase that land that wouldn't take 20 or 30 years to achieve.
I actually kind of wanted to talk on that. So like in regards to like, micronations having genuine land. So personally, AP, if I'm not mistaken, your land consists of mainly, I'd say like your backyard. Is that correct in saying that?
Even smaller than that, actually. So the two territories that Eternia claims, one is an apartment, which doesn't even have a backyard. The other is a space that I am renting from another person's house in our northern territory. That one is where we do have both a backyard and a small shed that I've turned into what I call our micronational headquarters. That's very, very, very humble beginnings. Yet I hope
Right.
that very quickly, once we're able to save up a few $1,000s in our endeavors, we will be able to purchase a sincere plot of land that is our own, that we only really have to pay taxes on, and are able to start businesses and build homes for legitimate citizens there who wish to join us there.
Right. Well, I actually have.
Hey,
question
Connor.
I
regarding
was
that.
narrowly able to escape the pineapple Illuminati,
Oh, hey, what's going on, Connor? It's good to
and
see
now
you.
I'm here.
We're glad
I
you've
was-
That's
survived.
good, Connor.
The ITAL Illuminati is gone now. I killed all of them.
Oh wow, he has
You've
reset
done
the
this
new world
world
order.
service.
Yeah.
So, AP, in regards to the question I was going to ask,
Yes.
so, especially from, I know Viren's has talked to a couple, figureheads, as you said, trailblazers in the micronational community, such as
We'll watch another video now. Bye.
the Prince
See ya.
of Sealand and Kevin Baugh. I know personally that specifically the Prince of Sealand, Michael Bates, he has directly shunned, like I mentioned before, he has directly shunned those younger micronationalists who start off in their backyard. And I know that even Kevin Baugh
Did you say
has
Michael Bay?
Michael Bates.
Oh,
Michael
Also,
Bay is the leader
Michael
of
Bay
Sealand.
has a micronation? What the fuck?
He's the secret leader of all micronations. Michael Bay.
Oh yeah, Michael Bay.
Yeah. So Michael Bates has directly shunned those smaller micronations that like start off in their house or in their backyard.
Yeah, you
And-
idiots. Go freaking find an abandoned seafort and move there.
Yeah. And I
Actually,
know
to
that-
be honest, wait, sorry, because I've recently spoken to him, I would just like to say that even though he has influenced these people, he is not really for it. He told me in the interview that he doesn't like the idea of people opening nations in their living rooms, and he doesn't like that. And he says that this is the one-off thing, and Sealand is lucky to have this abandoned fort. That they have this long and actually really interesting history as to how it was captured. They fought so many battles, like actually proper battles to get it, and it's
Yeah,
actually really interesting.
didn't terrorists like fucking take it over and then like SAS had to show up and save them? I was like,
Yes, if you want to find out about that, actually, the
and then now
invasion
you
of
have to
Sealand-
pay microtransactions to become a knight or something.
Alright. So I'm gonna finish my question for AP. So I know that Michael Bates, not Michael Bay, Connor, Michael Bates has specifically taken shots, as Viren said, at these younger micronations that start off in the living room, saying he does not support them at all, and that in fact they are damaging the name of micronation. And I've seen from past interviews that Kevin Baugh himself has said, yeah, I don't really agree with all these like fantasy micronations and these ones that are like starting off in their backyard. AP, as a micronation that started off in their backyard. I mean, of course, everyone has to start somewhere, but as a micronation who has started in their backyard, and knowing that you have taken inspiration from these micronational figureheads, do you feel maybe insulted that these greats are kind of spitting at your feet, saying your micronation isn't really a real micronation because it didn't start off on some abandoned sea fort battling terrorists, or started off in the middle of the desert with a bunch of puppets and stands?
Fair enough. Well, I think I would say the thing that I call a micronation, and the thing that Michael Bates calls a micronation, and the thing that Kevin Baugh calls a micronation are all different things. We all call them the same thing, and we're all trying to pull and push for what that definition ultimately becomes. We are all pushing we're all pushing for our own interpretation of micronationalism. And I think I'm more surprised by Kevin Baugh if that is his stance, and I'm not certain of that, but if that's
It's like
his stance.
kind of like a half stance, like he's taking like small, like
right.
I
disagreements.
think he's specifically referring to like those like really, really tiny ones. Like the ones that like
Yes.
is like a 8-year-old's bedroom and his Minecraft server.
Yes.
Well, not just a tiny one, but like those micronations like Obsidia, which is literally just a rock and a briefcase.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so I think it is interesting. I would love to see, this is a detraction, but I would love to see an interview in Microcon where Kevin Baugh's like talking shit behind Obsidia's back, like in the same room. I think that'd be hilarious.
Yo, those Obsidian gals, I don't really know about them. Like, they just kind of walked in here with a briefcase and said they had a country.
He like
in there,
steals
and
the
they said I could touch
briefcase.
it or
and
You know,
becomes like a
Back
huge
in my day, you had to fight terrorists and mustaches in order to make a micronation. Nowadays, everybody and their grandma has their own micronation.
If you didn't fight in World War II and then become a micronation, are you even really a micronation? I fought in East Germany.
You know,
Prince Michael over there, he fought.
I had to commit tax evasion in some Australian river in order to make my micronation.
Right. So I think it's
Sorry,
a great
sorry.
question.
Just one thing.
Yes.
That's an interesting. Oh, sorry.
Hi Jackson. What's up?
Viren, I'm sorry. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that that's an interesting concept. Maybe it's like a trend that only when micronations start their battle or start to fight other countries, only then they actually gain popularity. Can that be true?
What, Jackson? Can you get out of my room, please?
Yeah, Jackson, get out of there.
Jackson.
I'm sorry. My 5-year-old brother just wandered into my room. Jackson,
Well,
why
no,
are
he
you?
just started his own micronation and declared war against you.
Did you start your own micro? You want to talk for me, Jackson? What? Okay, no, he's in my bed now.
Come talk to the strangers.
Yeah, you wanna
Teaching your brother some
talk
very
to AP? You wanna talk about tax evasion?
You wanna talk to a fucking emperor?
Okay, yeah, he's hiding. Never mind. I'm
Did he
sorry
hear
for that.
Did he hear that? I'm
Oh.
sorry.
No, he can't hear that. I have headphones on.
So, Viren, in regards to your thing, it's not like necessary for, like, I have to have war so I can gain likes and views. No, because like AP, he's been doing pretty well for himself, and he's even directly made fun of war.
Well, so I would like to.
video.
I would like to continue my thought on what you said earlier, Stephen, and also what you said, Viren. I do think there's just a different definition of what we're all considering. I think I would understand if I were in Michael Bates' position, why he would feel the way he has. Hey, we had this once in a lifetime opportunity to claim this piece of land which was outside of the jurisdiction of our home nation, and to try and consider that a micronation, to try and consider it its own entity. I think he would call himself a micronation, but really in the sense that he's attempting to create an actual nation, or at least to have said this is something in history that deserves to be respected as something that was unique. And I think in his mind, people saying, yeah, you call your thing a micronation, my thing in my bedroom is also like that, a micronation, would be offensive, because he said, I could have died doing what I did. Why do you feel like you have the gall to call your bedroom a micronation? But I think with saying that, I don't believe he's right. I think the reason that people are calling their bedrooms micronations is because of a desire to sincerely have freedom and create their own nation if they choose to find some path in life where they don't feel forced into a specific system without their own consent or desire, and had the ability to push for their own. I think that Kevin Baugh believes micronationalism, and again, I don't know either of these people, so I can't speak for them, but I would say, I think him
Did you
saying...
just call out the grandfather of micronationalism?
I'm trying.
Prince Bates?
I'm trying. So
Beef.
So I think he would say, what I did, spent most of my life slowly building up this thing, which is a culture to myself and to my family, which I think is disrespectful for you to try to say that your 20 minutes of fame is equivalent to something that I built as a unique thing for myself, not looking for fame. And I think what my attempt to do is to say, I am hoping to allow people all around the world easier access to not rebel against their own nations, but to allow themselves the economic mobility to free themselves from any governing entity that they choose. I think I would like to see a future where the world is democratized and the human race is democratized to such a point that if you gain enough wealth, you can leave the planet and say, I don't have to listen to the rules that were derived by people before me. I can lay out my own path. I have my own destiny. I have my own frontier to carve. And that's what I hope to do. If Molossia and Sealand have their own opinions of what micronationalism is, that's perfectly fine. But what I hope micronationalism for the Empire of Eternia is something that comes out of nowhere and shocks the hell out of actual nations, that says, wow, this is actually becoming a legitimately competitive thing that is peaceful, yet is pulling away the interests and the hearts and minds of many of our citizens, that people are turning away from voting, that people are turning away from contribution to larger nations in support of these ones that are coming up out of the ground. I hope that we are able to far surpass the abilities of Molossia and Sealand and Liberland in what we can do. I hope one day we are an example that you can start from a bedroom, and if you have enough determination, if you have enough will, that you can make an empire unlike the world has ever seen before.
That's
I was, I really hurt my throat doing that boomer voice for Kevin Baugh and Michael Bay and and now I really want to get water, but I'm too lazy.
Yo, just drink some cheese. You'll be fine.
So, AP, something I want to add to what you're saying, and something that I've seen much in the community, just like you said earlier, like when you first find the community and you hop on board, and you see everyone, there's that sense of excitement, but soon there's that disappointment, and that hit me very hard. I kind of walked away from the community for a while. I think going back to both agreeing with what you were saying, and the other guy who's basically the old school, like, oh, how dare you guys, how dare you. I think that
Greta Thunberg? How dare you?
Shouldn't be here.
What I agree with both of what you're saying, but also disagree with both of what you're saying. I agree with what he's saying because he comes from the aspect of like conquering and land and basically independence, and that's a very true and real thing for him. And also, I agree with what he's saying that, like anyone that can start it in their bedroom, it's damaging the micronational community. Well, I agree with him. I don't agree with him maybe so much. I have a saying that I believe that people don't argue over a point, but the emphasis on that point. And I believe that what he's saying is that if there are no standards for what creates a nation or what creates a government, what creates a community, what creates a culture, then who are we to do anything? But having, I believe in his own mind, and I think to the hearts of many people out there, can say, but you know what, a standard was raised. And I think that I get that there's nothing wrong with the standard being raised, and I know that sometimes when there's a standard raised, there's that attitude of like, oh my gosh, well, that's how dare you, like, who do you think you are? But I also think it's important for clarification for generations. We all know the way that nature works is that the further you go down generations, the more is lost. It's very rare for new information to be added in unless it's intentional. And I think that we're at the state now in our, at least I can speak for from what I've seen in America, where a lot of young people, there's a huge identity crisis. And not only that, and this is something you've mentioned, and especially in a lot of your older videos, which were fantastic, is that there's not only this identity crisis, but there's a sense of what actually is real anymore, or what actually can matter, due to social media and the government and the economy and political aspects. And I think it's important for micronations now to really set standards. And I think one of the reasons why, like your channel, or this new one that came up a few days ago, these other different channels that really just speak on setting lines in the sand are so important to many micronationalists, is because a lot of people don't have that from their own personal home to the world around them. Everyone has the voice, everyone can say anything, and so it's very easy to be lost. And I think there's a really important aspect of saying, but there is a standard, and saying, okay, if there is a standard, then how do we go about this? And regardless of how you meet that standard, I think it's important to raise one. And even if some people are like, well, you know what? All right, and if you look at the 7 points of civilization, that's the one that I used. If we go to 7 points of civilization, that's what we're going to use to call a nation and whatnot. Sure, a lot of people call that being exclusive, saying you're pushing people away, but aren't we all bettered by challenge? The free market is grown through challenge. And I think that, yeah, it's difficult, right? It's difficult to have your own land, come up with a culture or language or economic system or whatnot, or even make friends and connect to other people. But we're here to be leaders. We're here to grow, and we're here to make an impact on history. We're here to fuck history. Excuse my language. We're here to do that. And that's not going to be done unless we... Yeah, and we have to grab ourselves by the balls. And I think personal responsibility...
We have to grab ourselves by the balls and walk outside.
I wanted to say something.
Before we get too far into anyone else's thoughts, let me go ahead and read the comments, because I know people are going to get mad at me if I don't do it. So, Grand Duchy of Asil says, I was thinking about something, but I found, first off, Mr. Random said they're the president of New Kant. In a few days there will be an election. Good luck to you in your election. Asil said, I was thinking about something, but I found my nation a little realist, mainly fantasy. I think that's where a lot of nations are. I think the fantasy is the idea that you're trying to push for, and the realist is the thing that you actually have thus far. So the more that you're able to achieve, I think the more you'll lean into realism, but that's up to everyone's interpretation. Sad Soggy Waffle said, what's going on? I'm glad they're joining us. Evan, I'm glad you're joining us. Zaria, I'm glad you're joining us. Grand Duchy of Asil said, do you know about Rose Island? I do not, but you'll have to fill me in. Evan said, how am I doing? I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well, Evan. Morgan Schaefer's joining us. Appreciate them. Viren, you made a couple of comments in there. Duke Sir Andrew Carter said, good afternoon. What's going on? Real quick, I do want to say as well, I definitely agree with, I'm sorry, I'm not on the voice chat room. I think it was Gray. If Gray was the one speaking most recently.
Yeah.
No, I definitely like a lot of what you were saying. I think there should be standards for pushing yourself to realism, if that's what you're interested in. But I do think there is something to be said for excluding people. I think micronationalism should be a ladder, and that ladder should extend all the way to the bottom. I think if there's a kid in their room in a third world country who only has access to the internet and doesn't think they'll ever be able to achieve anything in their life near the standards of an actual country, they should have a way to climb that ladder. They should have something that they can go to the community and say, all I have is my time to give. All I have is my dedication to this community, and that should earn them money. They should find ways, they should be able to have opportunity to find ways to make that money. And I think that's what micronations offer. We as nations are looking for people to put in work for us in exchange for the resources we have that we can provide for them to enrich them, which enriches us. And then I think as that ladder, I think we can always build that ladder up. My job as a micronationalist, I feel like, is to push what it means to be a micronationalist. If I am always trying to get better, if I'm always trying to reach more and more realism, that is good. But I should never, I think at the point where I ever say anyone below me is not considered a micronation, that's where I've fallen off. That's where I've lost my way, because it should be about people gaining their independence. It should be about people feeling like they have social mobility, and not saying you have to meet some standard before you're considered good enough.
And I just wanted to say something. I do think it would really help the community, if you ask me. And I'm fairly new. 2019, early 2019 is when I started really getting into micronationalism. But my personal opinion is I believe we need to make a bigger distinction between fantasy and realist micronations. Because right now, with the term being so broad, there is a lot of confusion about, and even especially with people first coming into micronations for the first time. And I know Gasanova can probably concur this, because he is much more recent than I. And I think it would be extremely beneficial if we were able to make a more clear distinction between the two concepts, you know? Because at the point we're currently at, I had a Minecraft server, like not the one I've been talking about like in the past few streams, but I had a old Minecraft server that was a fantasy roleplay server, and there was kingdoms that could expand and fall. Some people genuinely argue that that could be a micronation, and I think that that is stretching the term too much. And like when your micronation is entirely within a digital, this is just my personal opinion, by the way, is entirely within a digital like realm, like a video game, I think that is really, really, really starting to push the definition of micronationalism, and not in a good sense. I think that I don't know. It just kind of like what Gray said. It takes the challenge out of it, because if you're playing Minecraft and you build a city on an island, that using creative mode, there's no challenge there. The only challenge is building a bunch of buildings. And I think that really, but the problem is everybody always wants an easy way out of everything. Like, I don't know. But I do think that having a little bit more of that challenge to like establish some sort of bar, or at the very least separating those entirely digital online micronations into some sort of other category and distincting them even more would significantly help out the community in its current state.
And I agree. I think that there definitely does need to be that distinction, and the ones that I have so far notated may not be the best. Realist versus fantasy. The reason that I chose those two words for my own descriptors is because I feel like it's really hard to tell someone your thing isn't this thing that you call it by. it's a lot easier to say, okay, well, let's place it in a subcategory that more accurately depicts what you are doing. But I think it's weird for me to say I'm the judge and juror of, who's a micronation and who isn't. Now, I think it's a lot more fair to say, well, you can call yourself a micronation if that's what you're so adamant about, but you are trying to do things. If you self-acknowledge, I'm not trying to actually make a country or make something that will pursue land and specific goals that are more realistic, then you should resign yourself to considering being a fantasy nation, which there shouldn't be anything wrong with. But at the same time, that should be set aside from those of us who are trying to sincerely make countries. For example, there may also need to be categorizations and specifications for nations who are not only trying to make real countries, but potentially are even terroristic groups, ones that are saying we're gaining our freedom by going around and killing people from other nations and bombing nations and doing things like that in real life. They can call themselves micronations as well, but I would argue the way that they're going about it is much different from most micronationalists, in the same way that fantasy nations are going about it in a way that is much different from most micronationalists.
And yeah, that's a good point. I've seen a lot of realist micronations try to push for they've tried to come up with their own labels to redefine realist micronations as a completely different term. I've seen a few subreddits pop up, like micro countries that are exclusive realist micronations. And because I know a lot of realist micronations dislike fantasy micronations, probably because it's not anything tangible and it's all made up. And I do like a little bit of fantasy alongside your realism, but I feel when you really start stretching that definition to mean anything, at this point it's kind, I don't know, I'd say it's kind of gotten out of hand in a few senses, but I don't know. What were you saying, Greg?
I think there's a big difference in looking at it being a micro-nationalist. That's really a community. But being from a micronation is an identity. And I think that there's a lot of use of both words where people are like, oh, I'm a micronationalist, but they may not belong to a nation. Or if they say, I belong to a micronation, and it comes from my Minecraft server. And I think that if we, an example is a lot of the word community. What is the difference between a community and a nation? And I think these questions, in order for micronationalism, I feel, to really gain any traction, is to begin to define terms and stick to them. Because I've met a lot of people that are wholehearted micronationalists, but have not heard the term micronation, don't know about the communities out there, and don't know about anything. But if you had land, they'd move there and become whatever ism that's going on. And at least throughout America, there's a lot of people that are like that, who are very saddened by the state of the country, and that are very much desiring to become a part of micronations. However, there's not a term for that. And I think that if micronationalism stopped appealing to itself for its own sake, but had some standards involved, and I think not only would there be a lot more people interested, but also it would sort itself out. Because I think that there's a lot of place for a lot of young people, and that's one thing that really encourages me the most in seeing. I love America. I'm pro-American. I love my country, and so when I look at the youth around me, I can get very depressed, to be honest, because I see so much awesomeness happening, and there's so much bad shit out there. There's so much bad things out there. But when I see the micronationalist community, I get very excited because there's so many young people that are so desiring to work towards things, to learn things, to grow, to challenge. But there's also a very strong lack of direction and kind of pushing people in the general election. And I believe that's actually comes from the lack of defining terms and raising the bar. And I also think that because of that, the micronationalist community is also slandered by a lot of people that would be micronationalists, because in micronationalville, anything goes. And if you say you're so and so, well, I guess you are. And to, quote unquote, real world people, well, the world doesn't work like that. And I think just to put bars in place allows a lot of bridges to be crossed.
Agreed. And I think, like you said, the defining of terms is really important. In looking at the definition of the word nation, nation just means a community of people with a similar identity. A nation doesn't necessarily describe anything about territory or land or something like that. It may imply certain things about that, but it doesn't hold that to a strict definition. So then when we're talking about micronations, we're talking about smaller communities of people. In my opinion, most micronations, including realist micronations, are more akin to tribes than they are countries. They are groups of people who may have a land and a specific culture, but are not necessarily having the complexities and detail associated with them that would be attributed to a country. For example, large-scale macroeconomics, healthcare systems, things like that really, sincere militaries, things like that really define something as a country with borders. So I think the term micronation, it's hard to tell somebody that they're not a micronation, because that's like saying you're not a community of people. That it's hard to cut someone out of such a broad definition. But you're right. I think for realist micronations, those who are considering looking at defining borders and things like that, as they move up that ladder and as they are able to gain those resources, they should be able to redefine themselves in more and more serious terms as calling themselves a government, a tribe, a country, or a state. And those are things that can then be really compared and contrasted based on their definition. But I think trying to redefine such a loose word like a micronation into something that has exclusivities doesn't really benefit the community that's already there.
Absolutely, I agree. I've always hated the word micronation and micronationalist because of that very reason. Because I feel like using that term in and of itself is a form of escapism and excuse to the reality that we live in. And I think that like people, when I talk to people about micronations, people are like, oh, what's that? I'm just like, it's a nation. I'm just into nations. Just keep it simple, just because of that very thing, where a lot of people look at micronations. I love getting the reactions when I talk to people about micronations. They're like, so you're kind of like a cult. I'm like, okay, sure, if that rocks your boat, but no.
Can I just say something, Gray?
Yeah.
You sound like every single one of those reporters that calls Justin Trudeau every morning. You sound exactly like every one of them. It's I'm not being rude or anything. I'm being honest. It scares me a little.
That could be the same thing, by the way.
You sound like every single CBC reporter that calls Justin Trudeau every morning about the damn coronavirus.
Great. I really would,
yeah.
If I don't know what your interest is in micronations and things like that. If you would ever be interested in making content for the channel, I think it would be great, just for the reason that I would love for you to host your own 24-hour news cycle where you could bring up any topic just with that cadence and be real serious about it, and I feel like people would watch it.
Yeah,
you just be like, Mayo is not an instrument and no government can tell me otherwise. And everybody would like it.
I have my own YouTube channel called From Here. I'm working on content. I'm passionate about micronations, and I think I mentioned this to some of you guys. I take a trip every year, try to visit a micronation, try to shoot something on it. I'm big into vlogging and stuff, and yeah, man, I enjoy this, but just the comparisons right now. I'm not sure if I'm happy about it or sad.
No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, I promise.
The kid and I.
But yeah, that's cool, man. So do you go around once a year and visit different micronations?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool. James Smith from CBC Calgary.
if you could see what my hand was doing right now, you know.
I'm nervous. What the fuck?
Yeah, I realized how excited afterwards. I was like, you know what?
What is your hand doing? What the hell?
It's
No, but
doxing
yeah,
you currently.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, so my passion is really to actually, which is why I'm happy this new server came because I was going to do that. But my passion is really to encourage the individual in my focus is on the micronationalist. And to help that individual realize their own personal independence to then help their own micronation to be independent. I do not believe that any micronation inside the United States should declare itself autonomous, declare itself its own nation. But I do believe that the micronations, and my hope is in the future with Archean culture, is to allow micronations to get together to form clans. And then, anyway, the whole point is to basically, in the United States, micronations become states. And then once a micronation becomes a state, like voted in 50 states, not only will that change the social dynamic in the country, which will allow for the proper form of evolution that this country needs, but also if there's any place for it from a state, any micronation can create itself as a nation.
Okay, so what I got from
I'm
that
back.
is Deseret, here we come.
No, but you know, the thing is I started when I was young. I wrote a ton. I loved writing fantasy, and I just love writing, and I love worlds. And then I realized that this is our world, and we own it, and we run it. We can do whatever we want. And I don't believe in fantasy in the context of, oh, that's just fake. I believe in magic as a person. I believe that there's crazy, cool things out there that we can't understand, and I believe it's important to bring that magic to what we do. And I believe it starts out by creating standards and just saying that these are the way things are, and how do we push them forward. And so I'm pro micronationalism because I'm pro independence of the individual. So yeah.
So is it like that that one song? Fuck, what's that? By the Lovin' Spoonful. Do you believe in magic? So is that the Gray song?
God, you. I don't know. I don't think that's the Grey song. It's not the one I prefer, but no, I.
Chick in a young girl's heart.
Which is why APO Arch, I love what you're doing, and I love. One of the things I really enjoy about your channel too is how you focus on micronationalism and how much I feel like how much you've helped other people really focus on that. I think we all know that Discord, what is the MicroWiki Discord, and moving from that to this one, Empire of Eternity's Discord, has been just a really great pleasure, and meeting all sorts of you guys. You guys are great. There's such a different tone, and I love it. Just being able to vibe with people that are like, hey, how do we do this, realistically?
And I really appreciate that. I'm glad that you vibe with what we do, and I definitely think a lot of what you've said is really cool. The one thing I will disagree with you on, and I feel like it's probably gonna make you sad, I don't think the Empire of Eternia would ever be interested in becoming a part of the United States. Not to say that I'm not a patriot of the United States myself. The United States has given a lot to my family and a lot to me as opportunity. Right now, the reason I'm able to go to college and get the education that I'm able to is because of the United States. That being the case,
Absolutely.
I think in my opinion, the way that the United States is set up and was set up from the beginning is kind of garbage. I think that the way that our country can switch between its entire goals and agenda and motivation every 4 years is crazy. And I think as civilizations become larger and larger and larger, that's a more and more unstable thing. Because all of a sudden, if the United States isn't something that controls a certain percentage of the Earth's landmass, but controls, an entire solar system, that's something that is then okay, so changing, our entire direction and policy based on who the next guy that we elect is kind of weird. And I think what the Empire of Eternia is a way to break away from that. To say there are a lot of good ideas there, and the spirit there is what I absolutely love, but the way that we're going about it is wrong.
This is my opinion, and I'm not American. You probably couldn't tell, but I am not American.
You talk about Justin Trudeau all the time. For an American, you'd be a hella Canadian.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying for people who haven't spoken to me before, I guess I kind of gave it away with the CBC.
What? What?
Shut up.
No.
No. Really?
Shut up. But what I'm saying is it surprises a lot of people. Because you can't hear the accent over the VC. But what I was saying was, as a non-American, my perspective is that America could work if it was split up. I think right now it's too big. It's too big, and it has its fingers in too many things. It's like, I think like a lot of the things that the people of America want are possible if they could split it up into like different like regions, because as of now the United States of America has too many states. This is just from my perspective, at least. I don't know how it is there, but I mean, like public health care. That's a thing a lot of people want, as much as Americans don't necessarily understand it. That's a thing a lot of people want, and I think it would be definitely possible if they split it up into smaller sections, like the states. I don't know, in like the. I'm just saying there's a lot of differences between what the different states want, and like a perfect example of this is the marijuana laws, right? The different states all want different varying levels of legality on marijuana, and so if they broke it up into smaller regions, then it would actually be possible to be able to know what that specific. It would be more of specific and more true, and it would sort of eliminate that, like, every 4 years the entire government changes and the government goes in a completely different direction, right? And the reason why we don't have that in Canada is we only have 30 million people, and the majority of those people agree with each other on what they want to do.
Except Quebec.
Well, yeah, except Quebec, but
your parliament's kind of fucky wucky a little bit.
What do you mean?
Like I saw that video you posted about them. Like it was like a roast battle.
Oh, that's question period. Question period doesn't count.
Question period doesn't count. That's where you can talk as much shit as you want.
Yeah, no.
You run out of coloring books, Prime Minister?
The difference is between legislature and question period. Question period has been a British tradition since a long time ago. They've been doing question period.
I apologize.
It's okay. The thing is, you have no idea how many goddamn comments there are from Americans being like, "Why are they questioning the Prime Minister? He won the election. He should be able to, I don't know, fucking deport everyone without any question." Like, because they're so used to, like, executive orders and stuff.
No, I'm kidding.
But Americans are, like, used to such a high, like, whatever. But what I was saying is, yeah, question period doesn't count because it's a period that is specifically designed to question the prime minister and the leading party. And yeah, so it kind of becomes a roast battle of, look what you did. I'm questioning your responsibility, essentially.
And that's
holding them accountable. basically.
And that's
But-
understandable.
But the reason why we're able to work so well is we have such a small population. We're generally, minus Quebec, in unity, and well, minus the East in general just hates the West for some reason. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but like we contribute to like more than 30% of the economy, and yet we're singled out the most. You guys don't know this, but that's a thing.
Oh no, we all pay attention to Canadian politics.
I have every Canadian statistic on my phone at this moment, since 1934. No,
Ha!
but-
Joke's on you! There was barely any Canadian politics in 1934. You absolute fool! It only started being real
been
once
duped.
we gained further independence after the 70s and shit. Anyway,
Gotcha. I do want to read the comments before we get into too much else. Okay, so people saying hey a lot. Federal Republic of Bogdan, Elvin Guilford, what's going on, guys? Federal Republic of Bogdan says, is this a press conference? Not exactly a press conference, but more like a group discussion. But I like the analogy.
Heard that.
Sad Lad says,
This is question time.
It is.
It's
This is
question
question
period.
time. This is question period in Eternia. Ivan Romanov said hello and then said vodka. Ivan, I hope you're not drunk. Key West says Key West is here. What's going on, Key West? How you doing? Empire of Russia says, hey, the Discord invite and description is expired and my friend wants to join. Well, we got you, boy. Don't worry. I will post
okay,
a...
I'm now going to
AP,
perform
just use
question
the one
period
that you
on
sent
AP.
me.
Wait, I'm sorry,
AP,
what's that?
you remember the one? Just use the one that you sent me, like, in the DMs.
Oh, yeah, I got you. Yeah, I just make one that expires never. I actually need to put,
Expires never, unlimited uses.
yeah, unlimited uses. I need to, just do that in the, like, I haven't updated my general descriptions to put that in there, but I need to so that it's never, like, an issue again. It just takes one
Okay.
time of me doing it, but I always forget.
It's now time to question the Prime Minister. I mean the Emperor. Last week when you were at NATO, you became an embarrassment to all of Eternia. Also, you're stupid. Also, what is happening with our economy? And that's question period, everyone.
Only one of those was a
Go
question.
back to the West.
Are you from Quebec, sir? It sounds like...
Oh yeah, I'm the head of the bloc. No, I am the head of the bloc québécois. We want the Québécois independence. Quebec performs over 75% of the Canadian fish produce besides the Maritimes. And yeah, we are not independent. Okay, that was
Actually,
retarded.
that's actually a really good French like
I
impression.
love it. It was very solid.
At
That's
least-
one of the things... Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was about to say, Canadian question period is way better than British and Australian question period, because we actually have the balls to say shit. If you watch Australian and British question period videos, it's just like, yes, we all love Britain/Australia. Mr. Prime Minister, do you love the country too? And then the Prime Minister will say, yes, I do. Thank you. Do you like the country? And then it's just that for like an hour.
Yeah, they're being blueballed in there.
But in Canadian question period, it's just like it's like breaking into Justin Trudeau's house, looking for like, I don't know, it's like leopard underwear, then showing it in question period and be like, what is this, Mr. Prime Minister?
He just leans into the mic and goes, you should ask your
Yo,
mother."
AP, you got a cat?
No, I am a cat.
Meowsers.
I do
fair
have a
reference,
cat. Her name is Uno, and she's really cute, and she's my best friend.
Where's Dose?
She must be the one.
Yep. Well, actually, her name is Uno. I've talked about this before on Livestream, but her name is Uno because when we got her from a vet who they found her dropped off on their doorstep when she was a kitten, and she had like a really bad scratch and infection on her eye, and they thought she was gonna lose her eye, so they named her Uno. And then she was like about halfway through her healing process whenever we got her, and so they were like, we think her eye's gonna be all right, but we named her Uno. You can name her whatever you want. And I was like, nah, fuck that. That's her name. Her name's Uno. She's dope.
Let's name
Why
her
didn't you,
Dose.
why didn't you name her Dose? Yeah, come on.
Nah, Uno. That was her name. She's
Tres,
killing.
Cuatro, Cinco. I don't
Can
know.
I just
anything
say,
about
I think
Cinco.
this Ivan Romanov guy is a fake.
You think he's a fake?
Fake.
You don't think
I think
he's
he's
the
a fake
real
Slav.
Ivan Romanov?
I think he's a fake Slav. He's not. He's just saying kvass and
Yes,
vodka.
hello. Yes, hello. My name is Ivan Romanov.
potato.
I am real Russia. I have vodka and potato and kvass and blin. Do you
I
want?
say a
blin?
Russian word. What?
Uh,
Yet. See? I
oh, you say the Russia word.
The
yes.
Russian.
Bully the citizens. Bully the members.
Adidas track pant. Lada. CS:GO Rush B.
CSGO.
Bully. Haze.
And there you go. And now I'm a Russian citizen. They're sending it in the mail. My
That's the
citizenship.
question period in Russia. It's just saying as many Russian
No,
things as you
no,
can as quickly as you can.
The question
It's
period.
just like a CS. It's like a CS:GO matchmaking. site.
Just the entire Russian parliament is just playing CS:GO. It's a LAN party.
All right, everyone, get your headsets, and they just pull it
Okay.
out from under their
And then
chest.
Vladimir
Get your
Putin,
head.
he has a freaking Asimov op. It's just like fucking.
Yo, Putin is top fragging. What are you doing?
Vlad, we need to rush B. But the majority party always plays CT, and the counter terrorists, and the opposition always plays terrorists, of course. But I was gonna make a joke before you said that, and that's way funnier. But here's my joke. My joke is Russian question period is you begging for your life as Putin assassin strangles you.
He's
But I
just
like
go
yours
to
better.
sleep. Go to sleep.
Like,
Go to sleep.
go to sleep. Jeff the Killer. Woo! Guys, remember that? Ugh.
Putin.
Creepypasta.
Yeah, creepy. Remember when the creepypasta fandom was like huge? I was like, I don't know. I was in grade 5 when my best friend got super into freaking creepypasta. She like became obsessed with it and like had a woman boner for like Jeff the Killer for some reason.
I'm sorry. I just threw up in my mouth. Just excuse me 1 second.
Yeah, that's a reasonable reaction. Remember, she was in grade 5. She was 10 years old when this was a thing. It was.
I just want him to plunge his knife into my back, please.
Well, so that's my thing, right? That's my thing, right? Is that
You
I
into
thought
that-
you were gonna be like,
that's your thing? You're into that?
yes,
What, 10
that's
year
my thing.
old?
Yeah. Well, no, Jeff the Killer. Jeff
Oh,
the Killer.
Can I get on
sorry,
that?
sorry.
Sorry, no. I thought you just like getting stabbed, AP.
I do. It's my kink. I have a knife kink. It's what it is. So the thing, is,
You can't just move on from that part.
just casually. Yeah, I like getting stabbed. What about it? Okay. In regards to our industry,
that's the question period in Eternia. Emperor AP, what about this that I found in your house? Yeah, there's just weirder shit than that. Anyway.
Trust me.
But what about the bloody knife that I found in the garbage with a condom on it? That's not even the tip of the iceberg, bud. Anyway, next question.
That doesn't even help.
To keep the blood in or something. I don't
It's
know.
so you don't get AIDS from the blood.
It's like putting paper in front of you to stop a bullet. It's not gonna do much.
The
Knife
pen is
condom.
mightier than the sword.
The condom is mightier than the knife.
Pen is mightier than the sword, but ain't none of them old motherfuckers thought about a fucking rifle.
My Twitter is stronger than your AK.
I will
You think you
cancel
can kill me? I'm gonna get you canceled on Twitter.
Hashtag assassin is over party.
Why does this guy have sponsors? He shouldn't have sponsors. He shouldn't have sponsors.
I want sponsors.
No one gets that joke. No one gets that joke.
I
Nobody
want
gets that joke.
sponsors.
No one gets the
Okay,
joke.
so AP, when you were running down that, I thought those spires in the background was a mosque, and I was like, who the hell built a mosque? It was like
Wait,
really
did
high.
you really spawn next to an ice spiders biome?
I did, and
That's
I
literally
commented.
like one of the rarer biomes to be with,
Oh, for real?
What?
and you
Jackson,
just spawn right next to it.
what is it? What is that meant to mean? What? What is that meant to?
what do you
What?
Pog.
Ice spiders?
No, my little brother, my 5-year-old little brother, just walked into my room, placed the hourglass on my desk, and turned it over whilst staring at me the whole time, then exited.
My man said, "Time's up."
Your time is ticking.
What is that meant to? I'm afraid now. I'm genuinely fearing for my life. What is?
He
You
just
better shit his pants. He's timing you.
He just more legibly than you've ever heard him say anything in his entire life walks up to you and says, "We all only have a limited
is up,
time.
Connor.
You know Una's honest?
said no,
Just imagine
'cause
that like
my cat-
ticking sound.
Life is fleeting, Connor." And he just
My
walks
little
up.
brother, he has like this weird speech impediment. He's probably because he's 5, where he always pronounces his N's as T. So he's like, "Your time is up, Connor."
God, dude.
That's how he pronounces my name, Cotter.
He's like, "You should have been named."
Put the
Carter,
headset on the
Connor."
child. I want to speak to him. I want to impose wisdom upon him.
Well, he left. He placed the hourglass and then left.
He said, "Time is up."
Bring him back. Get him in here.
Jackson, come here.
Oh god, he's actually doing it. Okay, what do I say to him?
Don't. Why are you?
I want to
getting
show you
children on the
something.
stream?
Someone
Why-
wants to talk to you.
Why are you getting children on this street? What are you doing?
You're gonna get this. I'm gonna get the stream age restricted.
Oh
Yeah.
goodness.
Don't
Oh,
worry.
Wait,
I'm
no,
gonna send
that's
him
the
down.
opposite. I'm gonna get it age 4 children. Come here, Jackson. I wanna
Papa
Then
is
we'll
gonna
get no
kill
ads.
me.
put these headphones on. Okay. And then say thing. Say hi.
Hi.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good.
Hello?
Good, I said.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
And
So,
then,
Okay, that's enough for. Thank you. Okay. Hello.
Hey, what's
he's been
good?
enlisted into the ranks.
He really hates headphones, so that's probably why. Okay. Bye, Jackson.
What a scrub. He sounded adorable, by the way. He sounded like he
He's
genuinely
cool
doesn't
as
have a
fuck.
bad bone in his body.
Yeah, he's cool as fuck.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the. How
Would
was
you
the
like to donate?
conversation?
Would
What'd
you
you
like
guys say
to
to him?
donate to the Patreon?
Donate to the
What?
Patreon for Jackson.
What did you guys say to him?
Ciao, give us your allowance.
He doesn't even have an allowance. He's 5. He can barely structure sentences, let alone
He can
manage
pick
money.
quarters out of. If he can pick quarters out of the laundry, then he can donate to AP.
If he can pick quarters out of the laundry, he can steal his parents' credit card information. Okay?
But like, what did you guys say to him?
Oh,
I
didn't
just said
say
hi.
shit.
Literally,
Oh.
I just said hi and how are you doing? I didn't say anything to him.
Okay, cool. Cause he said good, and then it was like a second like I said good. I'm like what?
What do you
asking
think of
whether or not
Vladimir
Israel is
Putin
good or
playing
something?
CS:GO? Good.
What do you think about the communist dictatorship in China? Good.
I said it's good.
Quick, tell me the worst thing you know about Connor. Good. No, tell me the worst thing about him. I said good. Are you telling me he has nothing wrong with him? I gotta go. Just
He
leave.
just leaves.
I can just imagine Connor has like a knife on his back saying, okay, don't you say anything negative about Big Brother.
Sounds about accurate. That sounds like something I'd do.
Wait, seriously?
No.
Child abuse. Kappa's gonna get every one of us.
Go back.
Did AP just try to cooked
Wait, did
cod?
you just try and put cooked cod in the fucking furnace?
I did. I
That's
wanted
so
it
sad.
extra crispy.
That's so sad.
I wanted
This is-
extra
This
crisp.
isn't fucking KFC, my guy. You can't get extra crispy skin.
It was cold. I needed to reheat my food. I've been
Put it
running
in the
around with it.
microwave? Also, my face when he freaking used up an entire coal to cook one raw mutton.
It's what it takes.
It's could have saved that coal. You used up.
Ivan Romanov said Suka. Another little Russian phrase. He's totally Russian.
No, he didn't even say Suka. He said Kaika, because the transliteration of Suka is S-U-K-A. That is Saika or Kaika or whatever. That's not the correct transliteration. So if he was Russian, he'd know that.
Got him.
He got totally outbrained. Yeah. I
Big brain
mind
boy.
flexed on him.
And then he said something else. He said little things, little, and then like moon runes.
And then
And I think
Skrillex.
I think it translates to little child.
Bitch is what. Let me see. English to Russian, and then I'll just reverse it.
It's gonna be like
Yeah,
Google
he probably
Translate.
used Google Translate anyway.
Yeah.
That is, yeah, it's child. It says little child.
You will. I'm not
Okay, I'm going to.
I've gotten, I think, a higher level in this live stream than I have gotten in any other live stream.
Stupid
What do you
Google.
mean?
I'm at level 6 right now. I keep dying at, like, every other live stream I've died at level 5, so I don't
Why don't
advance
you-
myself.
Why don't not die?
I'm killing the game right now, you guys.
AP, you know what would help you not die?
Armor
Tool.
and better weapons. Yeah.
Like a sword. And
Like
the fact that
anything.
you're about to break your trident.
Just
Yeah,
fine.
why haven't you used the trident as like an actual trident?
Yeah, you know you can throw it, right?
I don't throw tridents. What am I, Poseidon?
That's
Well,
the point of the fucking
The
trident.
tridents were also. I think you're in like hard mode or something. It's
I
probably.
am in hard mode.
Connor, what did you say to him?
Oh, I said I am as Russian as Ivan Romanov.
Oh, dude, he's calling you out. He says, "Stupid Google, you Google."
Don't Google.
Well, no, I don't know. I think he's ooh, you have a helmet.
Okay, AP, and that. Wow, you actually managed to kill the golden skeleton.
And now I'm
It's
about to have
medically
this.
proven that if you Russian, then you spiritually can't speak English.
Facts.
And that's from Evan Gleifert. I don't know how to pronounce that. Is it Gleifert? Evan, please
I don't
correct
know.
me. Is it Gleifert, Gleifert, Glofert?
I believe the way
Jellyfart.
that his name is pronounced is evanyoungmoneythugness.aol.com.
I always thought it was Evan Jellyfart, and that's just me.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I didn't see the little like slash over the E. Yeah, you're right.
Grand Duchy
Ivan
of
just said,
Akron.
"No,
What the fuck? Is that a bat? What is that?
dude, you
A
died."
phantom.
That's so
You were
sad.
slain by a phantom. You know what happens?
No,
is,
this thing. No,
you
wait.
don't
You
sleep.
guys gotta have it like catch up. Give me a second. There's like a weird fucking dragon. Oh Jesus Christ!
It's called a phantom. It's what happens when you
The
don't sleep
phantom, and
enough.
you gotta sleep
Ah,
in a bed,
Damn it.
sleep in bed and respond.
Damn
You're
it. What a.
Only
Hey,
also-
small
have you heard of
language.
RL Craft?
only small English.
Wait. Wait, Gleifert. Which
Yeah.
pronunciation was right?
Only
You-
small English words.
Anyway,
That's
AP,
correct.
to fight the phantom, you either go to sleep and it goes away, or you fight it and have to keep fighting it.
Yeah, I'll just go to bed.
Here's a novel idea. Well, you're trying at it. I'm big.
He lost his trident
I
because he died
died.
to a phantom because he didn't sleep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I have to restart.
Okay, so I pronounced it right, Evan Gleifert. That's pretty cool.
It's not Jellyfart. I'm so sad.
I'm telling you, dude. You got the little dash over the E.
That was Jellyfart, bro. I don't even...
No, I think the evangelical what's that one anime? Something evangelical.
What?
You guys
Sorry?
ever heard of that anime? I don't know. It's some stupid anime. I was making a joke. Never mind.
Do we have a weeb in the chat?
I'm not a weeb. I don't even know what the name of the anime
I
is.
think I'm hearing a weeb in the chat.
I've never even watched
I'm
anime.
detecting a strong sense of neckbeard.
I'm gonna stab you.
Please.
Just like I stabbed little brother and how AP likes getting stabbed, okay?
I'll drown you like my
accidentally-
misgendered he/she.
He accidentally slips up. He accidentally slips up. He's like, I'm gonna stab you like that one time that Sakura stabbed, and then just, oh, never mind.
I'm gonna stab you like that one time I stabbed that one street worker on 1803 Second Boulevard South on February
We're calling the cops.
23rd,
We're calling.
2015 at 6:30 p.m.
He confessed to the murders. We got him. This whole channel was set up as an FBI raid. You're going to jail.
We played the long
God
con.
damn it! How did he know?
We've been waiting for this moment. We knew you were into
We
micronations.
knew that you, Connor, had a severe lack of community, and therefore we created one for you.
Ivan Romanov said am weed.
He is weed.
He am weed. He be am weed.
Connor, you good?
Yeah.
Connor?
Sorry,
I'm sorry. I was a little harsh.
Oh, sorry. I had a burp in the back of my throat, and it wasn't coming out. It was being really annoying.
AP, so I have a question
Wilson
for
in the
you
chat?
about micronations, and in the future, right? What are your thoughts on how micronations can move from? So not going the state route, not going, or maybe some people want to go out there, but practically speaking, for micronations inside the United States, for their survival and for their growth, what are your thoughts on how to do that in a way that doesn't create a lot of conflict with the United States or wherever nation that they're in?
Can you
Civil War.
Can you repeat the
Civil
question?
War.
He asked. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you can say it.
Oh yeah, he was asking basically, how would you recommend if we're not going to be I'm sorry, if you're not going to be a state, or if you don't want to be a part of another country, how would you go about gaining your sovereignty, without getting into conflict with a larger macronation?
That's a great question. So I think there are a lot of avenues that they all just take like a certain amount of money to achieve. I think if you're putting, like, a nation can say you can't fuck with things inside our borders, but I think that, you know, there, like we talked about, kind of a stair step or like a ladder to micronationalism. I think there's a similar nature for sovereignty. So I think that, you know, I can buy a piece of land in the United States, and I can say this is my own land and my own territory. But and
This is my land, and you can't have any of it. And just starts waving a Gadsden flag, pumping your shotgun with a cowboy hat, and saying, "Yeah!"
That's what every American is to every Canadian. No, but so you could do that, and you would be a lot more sovereign than someone who, say, couldn't do that and lived under more strict government regulation, yet you would not be completely outside the jurisdiction of that government. You'd still, at very least, have to pay taxes to that government, and if not, there would be consequences.
Not
So
if you're that one guy in Australia.
Yeah, but you have
So
to, like,
what are your thoughts on how a micronation should express itself to other non-micronationalists to avoid the confusion between being some kind of cult or some, you know, tightly wound community to just being a micronation? You know, not wanting to repeat like a Waco incident or something of that nature.
This is my opinion.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I just wanted to say my opinion. I think if every single micronational found some piece of land in like a more uninhabited part of the world, not uninhabited, but like a more unstable part of the world, and like planted like geographical findings and claimed we were an unknown ethnic group, we could probably get sovereignty from by the UN Council. But that's just a crazy, stupid, far out there idea.
Well,
Not so much in and of itself, but so much of the fact that the United States and other leading countries have been known to destroy the government of any local nation that they don't deem worthy of their plan. That's why I'm so against micronations of people leaving to other smaller countries to try to drum up some kind of legitimacy per se, because
That's why I'm against the
big
states.
nations, yeah, big nations, that's why the states, because big nations out there are just going to slip in and destroy you. And they've been doing this for tons of time, and they have all the experience and all the money. And unfortunately, I don't believe that it's, without being recognized on a universal level as far as just something that's happening, I don't think no one will ever get away from starting their own micronation. It has to be an international incident to really state that. Yeah.
I disagree, and here's the
Okay.
reason why. I think there are, like I was saying, I think there's levels to it, and I think it depends on how you do it politically. You have to be very, very careful.
Okay.
But for example, if I purchase a piece of land in the United States and I say, this is my country, as a natural born United States citizen, those people, if I just declare it my own country, but I'm not breaking any law, I'm paying taxes, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, that doesn't make me a sovereign thing. And I'm not saying that's where you should stop. There's continual steps on this ladder, and I want to talk about that. But first, if you do that, as long as, and you can get to a point where you're making money, you're gaining more citizens, and you're considering yourself, and everyone in that community considers themselves independent of the United States, as long as everyone is abiding by the law and doing everything appropriately, they can't just come in and arrest everyone and shoot everyone, because then that looks bad on them. Then the news article says, United States government attacks its own citizens who are ideologically different, who are political
Someone say
activists.
Waco?
But if you then can continue that and you say, okay, well, from there, I can, for example, start getting larger and larger fleets of ships, that can more easily sail into international waters and can be protected by guards and things like that, like large shipping infrastructure. Then there are more and more opportunities for you to do things that are outside of the jurisdiction of those governments. Not to say that that land and those people who are still residing in the United States or any other territory still won't have to abide by certain practices. Not saying that your businesses still won't be regulated in some sense, but you start to get a little more wiggle room because you have more money, because you have more influence, because it's harder for them to shut down something which is benefiting them as well. Eventually, if you can get like something where you're either establishing something out in the sea that you can claim, is for business purposes, for making international trade easier. If you started, say, launching satellites with a space program, launching individual people into small space stations, which, for billionaires right now is a legitimately possible thing, in 100 years may be a fairly common thing to do. So I think, and it would still cost a ton of money, but for large scale operations becomes easier and easier. So as you make more money and as you become a larger entity, they can't, as long as you're abiding by the law and doing everything appropriately, they can say, we don't recognize you as that, but they can only govern what is in their jurisdiction. The more you get things outside of their jurisdiction, they cannot control that. So the Empire of Eternia may always have land that is in the United States and may be regulated by the United States, but it may be a gateway for people who are interested in even further sovereignty to be able to move to platforms that are outside of that jurisdiction to live and work.
Yeah, see, I understand what you're saying. Something that's, well, okay, so going back to having your own land and declaring it, United States uses common law, and then it now also uses maritime law. And I think that something I found very interesting going to common law is that things like your social security number and a lot of your common identification and whatnot, especially social security, and anyway, is not even constitutional. And I actually have an uncle who legally went to court and deleted all of his papers via, because the maritime law that they use now, which is why, so like if you have any legal paperwork, it's all in capitals. So if you study Federal Reserve history, whatnot, basically the debt caught up to United States, and so basically, we the citizens of the United States became collateral. You can look it up; it's history. Everyone knows this. Jekyll Island. Anyway, so the point is that there is a lot of could say slip room in the laws of the United States to very much own your own land and become your own nation legally, from the point of declaring. I guess just the issue of seeing that, it's like, okay, you run a donut shop and then your neighbor down the road owns a donut shop, and then there's a bunch of donut shops, and then everyone's like, hey, you know what, there's too many donut shops, so why don't we all switch things up? So there's like extensive community. Well, then this other guy comes in and says, no, I want to make donuts, and I don't care what you guys think. Well, that's kind of what micronations are to nations in general. And I think that a lot of nations in and of themselves are not really going to be happy that they can't really direct the course of their nation or culture.
And I agree with that. I don't think they're happy about it, but for example, the case of Kevin Baugh is a great one, and the case of Sealand is a great one. Sealand a little bit different, but especially Molossia for this point. Molossia gets a Christmas card from the President of the United States most years. And the reason for that is because the United States wants to save face. Now, the United States, I don't think, legitimately considers Kevin Baugh or Molossia a threat to them in any way. But for that same token, it would be to their detriment, and it would make them look weak and petty to be legitimately afraid of this guy who has like puppets as guards to his nation. So if they immediately kicked in Kevin Baugh's door and arrested his 10-year-old daughter and was like, you're a treasonous traitor and you're all going to be hanged, it would just look really bad. But if they say, ha, you ain't shit to us, this is funny, isn't it? Then it's fine. But as nations start to get larger and larger and more serious, the United States, so long as you are doing everything you can legally in the strictest sense to keep good faith with that government and to say, I understand you're a larger thing and I'm not trying to pick a fight, then they'll just treat you like that little joke. But when you gain more and more autonomy and you continue to do more and more things that are outside of their jurisdiction, essentially they just won't want the press to cover it. They just won't want that to become something that poses a threat to them. So as long as you make it clear you're not posing a threat and you're just trying to do things that leave their jurisdiction, I think they'll say, well, they're not really posing a threat to us in any way, and the things that they're doing outside of our jurisdiction we can't control. They don't have any legal recourse to just kick your door in.
Yeah.
They would have to have and they may look for it, as things would get more serious. You may have to walk a thinner and thinner line to make sure that you're not breaking these laws. But if you do it right, it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my biggest fear in all of this is the same thing that happened, though. Anyway, never mind. It's same thing that happened to the Native Americans. Technically, they're their own sovereign areas. Their land is owned by a committee, and the resources. It's really what is the current state of all of that is just really messed up, really, really messed up. I visited a place down in Kansas, one of the reservations down there. It's crazy. Anyway, but their own sovereignty, but to avoid war per se, that committee is basically run by non-Indians, so it's partially, and the amount of abuse that they face is just crazy. And I always think micronations, can be, at least in America, if they have any weight in the future, can be treated that way. I get it. That would be a great power to micronations to be able to form a community inside the United States government. And I think any micronation out there that wants to really grow should reach out to Native Americans to see how they do it. It's pretty brilliant and pretty cool in a lot of areas. But at the same time, the amount of things that don't get out, like the pipeline that's going through. I don't know if you guys know about the pipeline that they're fighting now, out in I think it's North Dakota. It's crazy.
Which pipe? Oh,
the access pipeline. I think it's the North Dakota
I
access
thought you
pipeline
guys,
or something like that.
I thought for a second Wait. Pipeline? Canada? I don't know. You're talking about some American pipeline. Who cares about American
Yeah.
pipeline? You know, BC
Yeah, so it's pretty
has been
serious out
arguing
there.
our pipeline. God damn BC. Anyway, you can continue. North
But
Dakota.
I think.
All I'm saying is, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. I wanted you to finish your thought.
All I'm saying is that, like, yes, as much as there might be that saving face that one can lean on as a tool to kind of grow. At the same time, it's like it's like you grew up as a kid in your parents' house, right? At some point, back talking is going to get you kicked out of the house.
Agreed.
So at what point do you just say yeet?
Right. But I do think that it's really interesting because it depends on how you go about that. If I've seen a lot of, for example, Native American micronation groups. I've seen micronations based around the idea of saying, hey, the way that Native American tribes have been treated is wrong, and we hope to gain future sovereignty and more access to the hopes and desires that were originally intended for Native Americans by their ancestors to be fulfilled through this idea of micronationalism. I think as we see a larger growth in micronationalism and legitimacy to it, as long as it remains something that is seen as peaceful, and as long as it remains something that is seen as the moral rights of as long as micronationalists stay in the right, as long as we go about things correctly, I think we will gain a lot of supporters in those people who have been marginalized in the past. Because we now live in a culture where anything and everything can be recorded and uploaded to the internet in a matter of minutes, and the world will see it. So if the United States started all of a sudden cracking down on these small minority groups, it would look bad just like it always has, and will continue to look worse. And I think the people who have been oppressed in the past and who have been treated as those minorities will be the first to pick up the branch against that same treatment that they had.
I'm really digging what you're saying, and I think going adding into the conversation we were all having earlier, just about raising the standard and raising the bar per se as a call for other people. I think that what you're saying there, that particular step is, I think, should be seen by all that join the micronationalist community, especially those that are younger, and they're really debating where they want to go and what they want to study, what they're passionate about. Because honestly, what you're saying right there, that particular call, I think is very important for many people to hear. Okay, you're young, right, and you don't know what to study, but right now you're working with this micronational community studying law. Or trying to write your own laws. Well, study law. In fact, study your nation's law, because maybe in the future you're going to need that to defend your sovereignty to that nation. And I think that a lot of young people could see that kind of vision where, hey, if I study really hard every day on this particular topic, whether or not it's technology or law or community or economics or programming or whatnot, that in and of itself will allow the evolution of micronations to go from that sort of, hey, are we kind of doing this thing, community or whatever it is, to no, we're a nation and we're armed and dangerous in the context of we have been studied, we know the laws, we understand, we can be versed in conversation and other topics, and being able to provide that to the community, I think is going to be very, very important, if not necessary, for the growth and expansion of micronations as a whole.
I agree. I think it's really, really interesting because one of the things that is one of the best quotes I've ever heard, I couldn't attribute it to anybody right now. If somebody knows it, please let me know. But I've heard the quote before that in this world, and especially in the United States, we vote with our money. So the idea of that is that, for example, Jeff Bezos and Amazon, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the world, he had, when he wanted to create his new headquarters for Amazon, he had different states audition for him and pitch why their state was the best for that job, to give him tax incentives, to give him legal loopholes and breaks in order to allow him increased profit. That is something that is incredibly powerful, because if a business can do that, I feel like a micronation with enough money can absolutely do that, so long as they're seen as a good force that is enabling a lot of jobs and providing a lot of happiness and economic mobility for the citizens of the United States and citizens of the world, that those countries and those groups which you are a part of and are seeking to be a part of may bend over backwards in order to make sure that you stick around. You know, it's interesting because like the company like Amazon, there are plenty of companies, especially large manufacturers, who move to different areas and don't pay taxes for years and years and years, any tax at all, because those jobs are more important to the politicians who are accountable for them, for their constituents, than the taxes. You know, if you lose a few $1,000,000 in tax a year, that's really bad and it hurts a lot of social programs. But it's harder for someone to ask you, you know, why is our tax system doing so poorly, versus saying, you know, why did we lose 12,000 jobs this year?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, so that's for me too. I know a lot of micronations, there's this thing like, okay, how do we, you know, quote unquote legitimize? Well, you know, somebody buy land, somebody, you know, turn everyone into a corporation. I've looked at those possibilities. I own a company. I think it's a horrible idea, impractical, for an individual to hire, per se, his citizens as citizens. But do I believe that through business, through innovative business, that micronations can stand a chance of growth? Absolutely. And I'm designing my company around the idea of generating micronationalists, per se, in every community, for the sake of micronationalism as a whole, through the promotion of community and economy. And I think that that's really, honestly, the way to do it, to do any of this, is business. Not only because there are lots of young people that are moving into this and they're struggling with what to do with themselves, with their money, with their life, but also because the world is not going to hand you anything. And if you want something, you have to go and get it. And if you can go and get that and do that with the people that you care about, doing the things you love, well, then absolutely. So being in the micronationalist community and finding people and being a part of people's visions and helping everyone out, and then also having a trade that you can find yourself really digging into, I think that's really going to grow the community as a whole, because you're surrounded with all this good energy and good ideas, and then you can able to sit down by yourself and study, and then, you know, get into a business and create that money, create that revenue stream. And honestly, as much as, you know, we might talk about micronations as you know, a philosophical thing or cultural thing, it's really an economical thing at the end of the day as well. And it's really important for people, I feel, to really be like, okay, but where's the money coming from? And try to generate that in themselves.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. I think part of the reason why I've focused so much on it, sorry, there's like a little gnat around me. One of the reasons why in my channel I focus so much on economics and why we did the series on economics is because that's the conclusion that I came to myself, is that, you know, having all these talks about what people should and shouldn't be doing with their micronations and what the best way to start is and what the best type of government is, all of that's very important. But the thing that allows people to do much of anything with these nations, and the thing that will allow people to come in and do more with those nations, is that opportunity, is those economics. There are very few, if any, professional micronationalists out there today. And if we can make that something that is a common thing, or at least a more common thing, and something that's certainly very realistically possible for somebody, that opens the door to true legitimacy.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's one of the biggest reasons why I try to take a trip every year and visit a micronation. And in the future, I'll be shooting, you know, documentary style on them, because I don't look at micronationalism as micronationalism. I look at it as independence and people wanting to express themselves, however, under what set of rules and distinctions that they want. And so I think, for me, visiting micronations and being able to say, like, hey guys, this is true. You know, this isn't just, you know, conversation you hear over Discord. No, like, this guy went over here with this camera and shot it, and it wasn't staged. This is real. And then not only being able to share that with micronationalists, but also with people in general, I think is really important. Like if you look at how many people enjoy watching those like wilderness survival YouTube channels, whether or not it's create everything from scratch or forget the guy's name, but you know, those guys in India building houses or whatnot. There is this crisis, I feel, in culture in general, no matter where you are, where that ability to be connected to reality seems so distant. And I think that micronationalism is going to be one of those things that really draws people together, because when you build something from scratch that you can call your own, and it makes sense, and it's not only realistic, but it's possible, the sense of identity and personal growth that you get from that is just like, damn, this is what I really want to do. And I think that, yeah, agreeing with you, like, more people talking about this. Exposure is exposure. And just showing the reality that, no, this is like anything. This is just, you wake up in the morning, you're part of American. You wake up in the morning, you're part of, I guess we'll use Canada. Or, you know, whatever, or whatever micronation you're in, you know. It's just normal. It's a natural way of life to want to be independent and want to grow and want to do your own thing.
I completely agree. I think, Gray, I know you said you have your own YouTube channel, and I think that's really cool. The other guy, Micronations, his YouTube channel, he's thinking about becoming a citizen, and in addition to his own channel, making content for our channel. If you are interested in that, I would absolutely offer you the same offer. You know, our goal is to try to influence micronationalism as best as possible, and to get as many voices in the community out there on this platform as can be. So if you ever find yourself interested in that, you should definitely let me know.
Definitely appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it. I currently don't ascribe to a micronation yet for the sake of neutrality amongst micronations. I just consider myself a micronationalist at this point. However, in the future, when I guess I have more time to think about it, I'll definitely let you know where my thoughts are at. And definitely, at any point, I'll be releasing more content on my YouTube channel soon. And if there's, I don't know, anything you just want to talk about or whatnot, I would love, like you said, exposure is exposure. We're all micronationalists. We're all about doing this. And I think it's really important for everyone to pitch in and communicate, you know, what's going on.
Agreed. And even just for your own channel, if you would ever like, you know, an interview, or if there's any way we can ever help you out, if you'd ever like to visit Eternia, I would be more than happy to do that.
Definitely, definitely. I have the coolest story I want to share with you guys about micronationalism and all of this. Right before I took my trip to Kansas, I was headed to the other side of the state to pick up my rental car. And there was like this big Greyhound bus. So I get on the Greyhound bus, and there was this guy in the corner, a young lad, and he, I just see him talking, but he was like kind of acting uniquely different. I was like, okay, whatever, you know? So anyway, he sat down, and he got on the bus, and I just waved over him to come sit by me. So he came, sat down. He's this guy from England. And he was like, you know, what are you about? What are you up to? I'm like, micronations, of course! And we talked the entire, like, 3-hour ride about micronations. And hopefully this year, if the COVID thing kind of goes away, he'll be joining me on the trip. He's from England, passionate about micronations. And at first, you know, he did the same thing. He was like, hey, is this a cult? What are you doing? You know, are you crazy? And then, you know, just sharing it. And I've shared with him this channel. Empire of Eternia channel, and a few other micronations that I'm really passionate about too, and shared their content. And I was just, for me, what made me most excited is that I could say, oh, you know, I got a link for you that you need to see. Oh, you know, I know this person that will show us, because I think, like you said, you know, content is content, and people speaking, you know, without their tinfoil hats on, you know, the realism, just will help people understand that this isn't, you know, this isn't crazy. This is just people being people, and it's really important and easy to connect with him. So he's fascinated by the idea now, and he loves it. And I don't know what his plans are for micronationalism in the future. I know he's going to join me because he's very interested in the communities. But it's also really that easy, just to lean over to someone and be like, hey, are you weird too?
Well, absolutely, and I think that's a really beautiful story about connecting with someone on that level, about anything, but also having it be about micronationalism is really cool. I know for just like you said, anybody having that connection and that content that they can put out there is super important, because when I started out in micronationalism, there wasn't really much you could find. You know, YouTube for micronationalists wasn't a big thing, the biggest YouTube exposure micronationalists had was from those news channels and things like that, who would say, "There's a weird guy in his backyard who planted a flag. What the hell's going on?" And it's cool to see that we're starting to find our own voice.
Yeah, absolutely. What frustrates me, and this is saying again, like, because I don't have my own micronation, I just consider myself a micronationalist, so I don't feel I have the right to say this. And definitely, anyway, I'll just get to it. But every time you type in micronation into like YouTube or something, you get Molossia. And I just, it always annoyed me, not because of anything against Molossia, but you go back to, was it Liberland, the one out in the ocean?
Right.
Yeah, and Sealand, thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense, right? You hear those stories, you're like, yeah, that's a micronation, and they're like, oh, well, this guy kind of does his own thing with the gang. That's all it is, just something simple, nothing. I'm like, oh, come on. We've all been there, late o'clock at night, studying hard or working hard to do something, and the amount of passion you have to bring to the table, it's not, I don't know, I just feel like the injustice. But now, having these other channels and other people up talking about micronationalism, like you said, yeah, it's finding its voice.
No, absolutely. And I share your frustration and the idea that, like, one particular subset of micronationalism would define somebody's initial understanding of what it is. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a big frustration. Definitely a big frustration.
Because that's one thing that I know I really like about micronationalism, and I think is so cool about it, is that, like, no matter what your interest is, no matter what your passion is, you can create a micronation if you choose that reflects that. Wayward Territory is one of the really interesting ones that I've seen, because they're like, yeah, I'm this English guy who went out into the forest and got some land and is helping other people out that I find, and we're creating a community that way. There's like Kevin Baugh, who's like, well, that's not really the route I was interested in, but I'm interested in developing this idea of my own sort of utopia or whatever.
Yeah, no, definitely. Actually, I did want to ask you, because the last conversation we were having, last stream, we were talking, and I have very bad memory, so I apologize. Viren,
yes.
Viren, yes. We were talking with him, and we were just talking about the, buying land and whatnot. I want to hear your thoughts on that again. Just saying, to buy land for micronation is to say they own a piece, to move to, like...
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's something that I think would be really, really cool, and that I hope is something that, one day we get the opportunity to do, is just, I know it's all about sort of extending that ladder of what someone can do. If when I first got into micronationalism, somebody said, hey, for $5 on Patreon or whatever, you could you could have your flag. We'll print out a flag for you, or custom make a little flag for you, and stick it on a plot of land, and so long as you pay whatever the little fee for that plot of land is, that's yours to come and visit and to have as your claimed territory, so that it's just that one extra step in legitimizing yourself. I think the more you can say, when someone asks you about your micronation, if you say, well, I have a name and a flag, that's cool. But if you can say, well, I have a name and a flag, and here's where my flag, here's where this is planted, and this is the community of people I have, it's that extra step of bringing the community together, I think, and giving somebody that much more incentive to stick with the community for years and to grow their own passions in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's this thing that's, well, I'm from Massachusetts, and we up here they have this really cool thing called Berkshires, and it's a local currency, and it's been in place for, oh God, I don't know how long, but it's been in a while, and a lot of companies around here use Berkshires, and it's just really fundamentally amazing thing. It's just so cool. I think it's like 95 cents on the dollar, I think it's what it is. So it's just under regular currency. But what I think is beautiful about that, and I think Micronations itself should look to, is doing something like that, and developing a currency that people can use, a local currency with value, for Micronations to use to kind of be able to do that. Now, again, I feel like that's something that would be very complicated for. Hold on. Shares. No, it's with an E. Never mind. I'm sorry. I was just trying to reply to someone in chat. But I can't think clearly enough. So. Oh yeah. That would be difficult for Micronations without raising the bar and just saying like, oh, whatever currency. But I think that what Vern is doing in what is it? His new Discord that he created. It's discussion conference in his channel Micronation, on his YouTube channel Micronations, or even Eternia. You know, my whole point is that I think that if a particular channel that was, I guess, neutral but positive about micronationalism could find a way to make a base economic system for nations to use, I think that could really push micronations to grow in and of themselves, having a monetary value that you can all stick to.
Agreed. And I think that's what I hope to do with the Empire of Eternia. You know, we aren't neutral. We have our own interests and desires, but at the same time, the way that I view micronationalism is, and my micronation in particular, is as a train. You know, I'm moving towards specific goals and specific things that I'm interested in. Oh no, I blew up this bridge. Oh no, I'm so sad. Someone worked hard on this. Creeper blew it up. The thing that I feel about micronationalism and about this micronation in particular is that it's a train. You know, we have a specific direction that we're going, and we're going to be accelerating. At any point that you join on it, you can hop on, and at any point you decide it's your stop, you can hop off. The thing that I hope is that it just creates that acceleration for people, for whatever their goals and purposes in joining us is. The reason that I'm offering for other people to create content on the channel and things like that is because it helps us to grow the channel, but it also makes us the spearhead for a much larger movement. It allows us to get the momentum of a larger community behind us, and it means that we can then take some of the profits that we earn and give it to those people who rightfully deserve it because they made the content. The thing that is so cool about that is that we hope to do that. We have, the Eternian note, which is pegged to the US dollar. So one note is equivalent to $1. But as of right now, it's not really sensible for us to create the Eternian note as a system, as an economic system, because we don't have much to sell people. There's not much that an Eternian dollar can get you that isn't easier gotten with a US dollar. But if we start to develop an exclusive community of goods and services for micronationalists, that's when that can become a well-established thing. If the Eternian note means that any micronationalist that you go to will make you that has the ability to do this, will make you something for your nation, whether it's a flag or a costume or whether it's metal ingots or whatever that is. If you can go to a specific marketplace or a specific place on the internet that you can only get goods made by this community of people and they only sell it through these Eternian notes, then one, it makes people need to invest in that currency in order to get access to those items, and two, it then allows that community that has invested in that currency to directly have a captive market that they don't have to worry about getting undercut by other nations and other groups from. It creates a security net and a place for growth, an incubator.
Yeah, absolutely. The country that the micronation that I visited down in Kansas has something very similar. They're backed by copper called Kuros. Actually, they just set up a online banking, and so you can log in online. You can buy Kuros from them, log in online, do your banking from them. It's some pretty phenomenal stuff. And like like we were saying, exposure is exposure. Happy to see these kinds of things going on. And I just thought it was really fascinating to actually have one of their dollars, and their flag, that was able to bring back with me, and it was really cool to have that. Like, wow, I'm holding another nation's money. That feeling.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this. You said they were doing banking. Did you mean that's just the selling of their currency, or have they established a legitimate banking system? Because if so,
no, they have established a legitimate banking system, and you can.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, one, I would love to learn about how they did that. If you could DM me in Discord, I'd really appreciate that. And secondly, I've been looking into it a little bit, and a lot of what I've found about creating banking institutions in general, you have to be approved by the FDIC. It's the Federal Deposit Insurance Commission, or Insured Commission, or something like that. You have to be approved by them in order for it to be a legal thing. Otherwise, you can get in a lot of trouble. So I'm curious about how they went about it, and whether they're doing it that way, or if they found maybe another loophole that allows them to do it another way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually pulling up their stuff right now, so you can, if you decide to reach out to them and ask them about all that and whatnot. Like I said, I'm not, other than just talking to one of the two leaders there, and I don't know an entirety of the work, though you can find all of their information on their website, and all of their laws and everything. They're one of the very few micronations that I consider a legitimate micronation. And just the way, again, legitimate in the context of a realist micronation. I guess that's how I should say it. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is life for them. It's a way of life for them. I don't believe at this point the community as a whole owns land for the nation. I think it's their own homes and such, which is fine. They're considering buying land, actually buying out of town. There's a lot of towns up there where you can buy. Yeah, talk to them. I think you would enjoy speaking with them, and I think even to hear from them on your channel would be great too. Exposure's exposure. But yeah, it was a fascinating trip down there.
No,
and looking at the stuff the way they did it. But
absolutely, I would love to learn more about them, and I think our viewers would as well. For the meantime, though, I think I am going to go ahead and head out. My dad just got home. I want to spend some time with him. But I will see you guys all next time. Anybody who wants to talk to me about anything, as always, please feel free to reach out on Discord or attorneyandempire@gmail.com. And I love you all. I appreciate you all.
Solid. All right, man, this is awesome. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.